Hey, I was yesterday years old when I learned that September used to be the 7th month, October used to be the 8th month, November used to be the 9th month, and December used to be the 10th month. Did you guys know that?
Yeah. That's Julius Caesar, right?
Yes! Actually, so what happened was, I'm going to tell you, it used to be the year was March to December, and then there was a ceasefire between the countries warring in January and February, and those were the 2 months in between the start of the end of the old year and the start of the new year. And then the astronomers were like, yeah, no, fam, we need those 2 months, actually. It's part of, like, the sun cycle and stuff. And so then they added those. And July used to be called Quintilius because it was the 5th month, but they named it July after Julius Caesar. And August is named after his great uncle. Welcome to Overthinking Games. This is a podcast about what video games can teach us. My name is Katie, and I am joined by my two hosts, Dempsey.
What's up? Howdy.
And Seth.
Hi.
Brett is off gallivanting this week. So our topic this week is going to be about empathy and gaming and how the two might impact each other and in good and bad ways. But before we get into that, we are going to talk about what we've been playing this week. Dempsey, why don't you start us off?
I have been playing Silksong. So I want to complain first. We used to have a section at the end of the show where you could talk about other things, and then for some reason we don't do that anymore because every time we end, people complain that we're recording too long. So
well, it's because we need to be ready to end the show at like the 50 mark and then do our honorable mention for like the last 10 minutes.
Yeah. So I'm just going to take this spot and talk about what non-video game stuff I've been doing because the space I used to have for that has been stripped from me. So
we can still do that.
I've been playing Silksong. That's been like the only game I've been playing. I'm up to where I'm fighting the dancer, the guy that turns into a tornado and then has like sparkles and things like that. He's very beautiful. I really like his showmanship and things like that. I really like him. I am like, I don't know, maybe like 40% through Act 2. They give you like 3 places to find. It's almost like Hollow Knight in the middle of Silksong. It's kind of how the structure of Act 2 is. You get kind of like the Hollow Knight quest in Act 2 of Silksong. And so it has continued to surprise and delight me. It's been very fun. There's every time I think that the map design is awful and horrible, it kind of folds in on itself in a way that makes pretty good sense. The boss runbacks that people complain about, I have not experienced yet. So I think a bad one, one that would have been bad would be the Great Knight that guards the gate to get into the city, or whatever his name is.
That one sucks.
I flew through that. Every time I could, and I also think because of the length of that boss fight, I kind of liked a longer run back because it took me out of my flight or fight while I was doing that boss fight. So I don't know. I just have been really loving the game so far. I was able to sharpen my blade again, which helps exploration. So yeah, it's just, I feel like I'm really into smooth processes. The things that make this game take forever for me is I refuse to explore other places when I find a boss that's very difficult for me. And so I will just spend like 30 attempts on the same boss and just throw myself at it rather than going and getting stronger. And then, yeah, I think I am at like 40 hours. Which is a long time to play this game for only being midway through Act 2.
Yeah.
And then, but the other thing that I've been doing with my free time, I've been watching TV, which is not something I usually do, but I have a friend that I watch TV with now, and I have watched almost the entirety of Stranger Things. which is a very good TV show. I thought it was going to be shitty, and for one season it was bad, but then for 3 seasons it was pretty good. So if you have opinions,
was the bad season the one where Elle goes to the city and meets the other people or something?
Yeah, that whole season was kind of really bad, but everything else is really fun. If you have opinions on Stranger Things, email us. We got to plug our email. Email us in the show notes and follow us on TikTok. Okay, Katie, what have you been playing?
Well, I haven't started Silksong yet because I decided I needed to play Hollow Knight first, and I just have this like stupid demand avoidance thing where I'm like, oh, I should play that, now I won't. Which like ruins my life. It's fine. But I've been playing Hollow Knight, and this is like my 3rd time starting over, and I have been flying through it. I've just beat the Mantis Lords. It took me like 3 tries, and I'm already to the City of Tears, and I'm like, what the hell was I doing when it took me 12 hours to get out of like the starting area? I don't know what I was doing. That
was my exact experience going back to Hollow Knight before playing Silksong, where like it took like a 5th of the time than it took my first 2 playthroughs. It's crazy.
Yeah, and I keep having to like, I can only play for 20 minutes at a time, and then I have to rest because I'm crippled in my hand. But but it's been really fun and just satisfying. I'm like, damn, I'm good at this game. But I've also been playing a little bit of RimWorld, of course, and a little bit of Warzone. But honestly, what I've been doing a lot of lately is reading. So if you get to talk about what you've been doing, that's not games, so do I. I've been reading, I'm trying to read 40 books this school year. It's part of this 40-book challenge that we're doing with all of our students in the English departments. And they're like, there's no way we can do it. And we're like, yeah, we absolutely can. And the teacher's going to do it with you. So I've read 4 books in September, and it's been super fun. They've been all different genres. But the book that I just finished that I want to shout out is Children of Blood and Bone by Tomi Adeyemi. And it's the first, this is going to sound terrible, but it's the first fantasy book that I've ever read that isn't based on like white European fantasy lore. It's set in Nigeria, and it's absolutely fascinating to read a fantasy book that is set with such different, like folk tales and legends and language and all the things. So that's really a good book. It is young adult, but there's only 2 chapters of YA embarrassing cringe. So I highly recommend it because it's like 20 pages of cringe, and then we get back to cool fantasy shit. And I really enjoyed that. So that was awesome. I've also been watching The Expanse, which is an amazing show. Have you guys watched that?
No.
Yes.
It's good. Oh yeah, you told me about it before, Dempsey, about how Amos is different than he is in the book.
Yeah.
He's so much better than he is in the book, actually.
I know. Yeah, I agree. I completely agree. I think he's one of the few characters in fiction that gets better when he gets brought over to like a visual medium.
Yeah, he's so cute. I have a crush on his psychotic little ass. So it's really good. But what I love about it is that I've read the books, so I know exactly what's coming. And so I can just absolutely sit back and enjoy the TV show because I already know where all the like major plot points are and everything. But yeah, so that's what I've been up to. I'm hoping that this weekend I'll get a little further in Hollow Knight and be ready to start on Silksong soon. How about you, Seth?
I don't think it's super different from last week, but just 2 games. Been playing a lot of Silksong, been playing a lot of Borderlands 4. But I've also been working a lot. And so I haven't had a ton of time.
You're not working outside of a contract, are you?
Yes.
No! Don't do it.
Yeah, let me just not grade any papers at home and therefore never give them back to students and never put the grades in Canvas.
Perfect.
No. Anyway. So, I think... Okay, so I was messaging about this in the Discord a little bit, but Silksong does eventually give you a completion percentage. It's the thing you get after you roll credits. So I think I'm now closing in on like 90% completion. I'm in the part of the game, you know, where you're like, oh, okay, I see that I'm missing like this many tools and I need to go find them. But I'm also at the part of the game where it's like, I have no leads. I guess I'm looking up a guide to find the last 10% of stuff that I missed, which I feel like is fair.
I've used a guide once, and that was to find the steps to go, the howling steps or whatever. I couldn't find out.
You know the whole like blight area on the right side of the map?
Oh, yeah?
I did not find that area until after I rolled credits.
That area sucks. That is the one area I actually gave up on, and I'm like, no, actually, fuck it. Like, I can like do the Savage Beast, but I'm not fucking doing this.
Here's my take on
sucks.
that. It actually was not that bad, going back to it after you roll credits. I think if you go there as soon as you have access to Sinner's Road, you're gonna think it sucks. I went back there because I did it post credits. I already had double jump. And I had like level 3 nail, and it was easy.
Okay.
Like I just didn't.
Yeah.
Oh, and I have a charm that makes it so that when you go in the muck, you don't automatically get mucked. You have like a 10 seconds or something of muck time before you actually get mucked.
Oh, that's nice.
So like,
yeah, you're talking about bile water, right?
Yes.
Bro, I hate that.
It's literally not that bad. I think if they just made it so that you needed to double jump to get into the area, people would be like, oh, I do not need to do this as soon as I have access to it. Because that would be a very silly thing to do. Otherwise, game is fun. I have a few minor complaints about Silksong for where I am now. But most of it boils down to like, some of the runbacks suck. They fix it a little bit post-credits because you could just warp to the fast travel.
Sure.
Which is very nice. I actually disagree with some of the complaints that, like, I actually like the diagonal dash. I think your character does, like, visibly get stronger as you get nail upgrades. And it, like, feels pretty good to have lots of nail upgrades. I had complaints, but I literally can't think of them now because I've been having a lot of fun playing.
I want to talk about one spoiler moment that like kind of put Silksong into like this is the best game I might play all year. But it's gonna Katie, don't worry, it's not that big of a spoiler. It's just a little moment. Well, yeah, basically, she snaps someone's neck. I'm not going to tell you where in the story, but she like Hornet the character snaps someone's neck, and like I was like, oh, this is the coolest game ever.
I don't remember.
Do you remember that, Seth? Katie, take out your earplugs. So this is a Silksong spoiler, but when she gets her cloak stolen, and the guy has her cloak, and you attack from when you go to the prison for the first time.
Yeah.
And you attack from the top and you come down and it's just like a cutscene where she snaps that guy's neck.
It's been so long since I did that. I don't even remember.
That's such a cool... I was so enamored with that. Okay. All right, Katie, you can come back. She's looking at her phone. Okay. Anyways, But yeah, I was just like from that moment, I was absolutely enamored with this game.
I mean, this game does like a ton of things.
You sound a little psychotic.
No, it's a cool moment. He was right. Otherwise, I'm sure I'll have like a little bit more criticism when I actually like wrap up the game, but it's been a lot of fun so far. There's a lot of like really fun boss fights as you get later in the game. Cool. Let's see. The other game I've been playing is Borderlands 4, which I don't know, it's been like a weird comfort game because they just give you like a zillion side objectives for Borderlands 4, where it's just like, hey, here's a bunch of collectibles that we've marked on your map. Just kind of go get them at your leisure. And I'm like, okay. So if I would get like stuck in an area in Silksong, I'd be like, all right, I'm just going to load up Borderlands 4 and I'm just going to grab a bunch of collectibles for the next like half hour. And then maybe I'll go back to Silksong, or maybe I'll do another main mission. Borderlands 4 is open world, so you can just kind of like go here, do this thing. my real main problem with Borderlands 4, and by problem, I mean, this is a positive. They made the boss farming way too fun. So, like, for pretty much all the bosses in Borderlands, they drop, like, a legendary weapon every once in a while. I don't know. Let's say, like, 1 in 20 kills drops a legendary. But each boss has, like, 3 or 4 different legendaries they can drop. And they make it so that, like, you kill the boss, and then in, like, the next room after the boss, they'll have a place that you can grapple. And if you grapple on that spot, it teleports you back to the start of the boss arena. You can activate a station that just respawns the boss, and then you can drop back into the boss arena. It's like for my character, because I can essentially instant kill bosses, like a 20-second cycle, 25-second cycle. And that's just, like, way too much fun to just, like, blast boss, wait for loot, no legendary, go to the next room, respawn the boss, go in, blast boss, no legendary. And, like, it doesn't sound like it'd be that fun, but then, like, I just throw on a YouTube video and I'm like, all right, let's go. Let's see what legendary this boss drops. And for a game that's just, like, shoot, loot, kill, get cool weapon, kill something else, I'm having a fantastic time. I'm not even doing the main mission. I'm just, like, I'll kill the same boss for, like, a whole hour and be like, oh, what's this legendary? Oh, it sucks? All right, I guess I'll go do something else. And, like, I don't feel bad about spending that time.
It's the slot machine of boss battles.
Yeah, it's great, actually. You're so right. I love gambling on legendaries for bosses. I'm not even max level yet either. I love gambling. Let's go gambling. Yeah, I'm not even at max level in the game. I'm only at, like, level 40, and I could probably easily hit, like, level 45 and level 50 is the max level, and I'm not even through, like, new game. And I think there's a new game plus that you're supposed to get, like, max level. So I've just been wasting time killing bosses, having a blast. It's probably what I'm going to go do after we're done here.
Is Borderlands 4 new?
Yeah, relatively. And it was out around the same time Silksong was.
Oh, okay. Are you playing it by yourself, or are you playing it is your girlfriend trying it out?
No, she's not. Not her kind of game. But I was playing co-op with a friend. We played for, like, a couple hours. We got to get back on that, actually. But
cool.
Anyway, so now that we're 20 minutes in, what are we talking about?
As per usual. All right, so those of you who are longtime listeners will probably know this, but if you don't know, I teach middle schoolers, and they are generally understood to be sociopathic gremlins. And something that they do that made me think of this topic is they will refer to other people as NPCs or non-player characters, and they generally just sort of think that they are the main character. And I teach English, so a lot of what we do is, like, analyze stories and analyze characters and try to, like, put ourselves in their shoes, understand their motivations, all of these sorts of critical thinking skills that one would hope would help to develop empathy and the ability to understand other people's situations and perspectives, and to have a modicum of humanity and kindness. They're really bad at it. They're, like, really, really bad at it. So it's a little scary. I'm like, oh God, maybe is that something that comes in high school? I don't know.
No.
I'm hoping. No?
No.
They're not better at it?
Well, you know what? Some of them are.
Oh, God. So I always just remind myself that adults who are assholes were kids once. And sometimes
assholes
they
as
just
kids.
are all the way through. Yes. But I want to talk about the way that video games can encourage and discourage empathy, or the way that, like, point of view and perspective can impact the way that we experience a game or a story. So I guess my first sort of talking point is, can you think of a game that had a point of view or perspective that, like, really fundamentally shifted the way that you experience the game? Like, for me, BioShock. When no spoilers on a 20-year-old game or however old it is, but it came out in when, 2012 or something?
A BioShock?
2008?
2007.
Yeah. 2007, almost 20 years old.
Did you say 2001?
No,
Oh.
2012, I said.
Oh, okay.
But when the enemy is revealed, you go back and think of all the encounters that you've had and just feel utterly betrayed, and it rewrites the entire experience. And all of the feelings of empathy that I had for that character, I look back at that, I'm like, squandered care. And all you're left with is betrayal. But do you guys have any games that you can think of that have like something like that, where the point of view or perspective shifted your experience of the game?
So I think the most, maybe the game that might be most known for this is The Last of Us Part 2. Is kind of like, that's the entire narrative conceit of the game, is that the people that you are prone to empathize with, you kind of get a perspective from the people who has to deal with their consequences, and how, like, why immense violence on Ellie and Joel would be justified from someone else's perspective. And so like that game, I think that game puts the first game into a different kind of perspective as well. Like it really makes you question Joel's actions a lot more, and like ask if all these situations required violence, or even if they did require violence, if it's still causing harm that is irreparable for his 13-year-old daughter, or 14-year-old, or however old she is. And so, yeah, I think The Last of Us Part 2 is like kind of the biggest, in my experience anyways, like stretch of like how you can empathize with the character. And I am a very weak-willed person. So like if a game, like I will just jump on whatever the game wants me to do most of the time. And so if a game is asking me to empathize with the character, I will like not find that very difficult, because I want to be taken on a ride by the creative direction of the game. And so for me, I think I was prone for that experience to be really meaningful, because I will do what I'm told in a video game. And so if I'm told to empathize, with Abby's character, then that's what I'm going to do, because I want to be taken along. And so I think I was prone for that game to impact a lot. Like I'm the kind of person that experience was made for. And it was really affecting to me. I think it looks at, it's like, it's a very hypocritical game. And like, there's a lot of arguments that people make why it's not actually about empathy, or why like it doesn't actually have anything interesting to say about justice. But I don't know. I think it does have a lot of interesting things to say, not necessarily about justice. I don't think it's saying anything interesting about justice, but mostly what it's saying is like, you like who you empathize with is ultimately arbitrary. It's like where your framing starts from is the biggest thing that impacts your empathy, not what the actions of the characters are. Like the actions of the character are secondary to who you're prone to empathize with anyways. And so, and that, I don't know, I think that, that was a very, impactful experience for me.
Sort of the same way that like in a war, you know, each side thinks that they're the ones that are in the right. Yeah. And the other guys are the bad guys.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, I would say yes, except that because this is so familial, like because it's not political or like large scale things, because it's so like family orientated, I think it, I think it feels a lot more personal than that, because a lot of people have like a paternal instinct towards Ellie, right? And so when Ellie does something horrific, as a player, these games are marketed at like grown men mostly, like, and so like as the player, you feel like you're going to forgive her because she's your daughter, and like whatever she does, you still have grown to love her. And so like there's that layer of like whatever Ellie does is excusable because you love her, and it doesn't really matter what she does. And so it's, I think it's a lot more stretching like the personal empathy you have for people that you love than like a larger political conflict or something like that.
Right.
What about you, Seth?
Sense.
I'm thinking of a couple games, actually. Like, the first thing that came to my mind is the Beginner's Guide, because that is also a game where, like, the whole conceit of it is that we're getting this, like, obtuse perspective on what's really happening. And that, I mean, like, it's why it's sort of like the game of the podcast, more or less. Because I really feel like it causes you to, like, rethink the whole situation and, like, who am I really empathizing with and why? But I guess that's kind of the whole point of, like, the unreliable narrator bit in the first place. Second game I was thinking about was Hotline Miami, which is...
Oh, sure.
Oh, I don't know what that game is. I've seen it, but I don't know what it is.
I think you would like Hotline Miami.
You might actually like it. It is a, like... It's a top-down arcade-style shoot-'em-up. But it's also...
Okay, that's what I thought.
It's also roguelite. But the narrative of the game is a little trippy, where it's been a long time since...
I don't think it's a roguelite.
No, it's not a roguelite. It's a... Sorry. I'm just thinking about it in terms of, like, you die and then respawn and have to, like, do the level again.
But the level's always the same exact thing.
Yeah, the level's always...
That's how you learn.
Not a roguelite at all. I don't know why I said that.
It's also it's level based, so, like, once you complete a level, you don't have to. There's nothing roguelite about it.
There's literally nothing roguelite about it.
You just die and respawn. Got
correct. But it's like a top-down arcade style level based shoot 'em up. The narrative is odd though, because if I recall correctly, and I'm not mixing up its sequel, you play as, like, a hired hitman. But also, like, halfway through the narrative, it turns out you're having, like, a psychosis episode, and, like, you've been in the hospital. And the people that are calling hits in are, like, doctors and stuff. But turns out you might not have been having a psychosis episode, and turns out that might have been actually happening. So, but, like, narratively, what the game does is it plays around with this idea of, like, who's in control and, like, whose narrative are we actually following and, like, what's real. And it sort of bounces between those couple of perspectives in order to help you, like, better, I don't know, understand, like, what this character is going through, or sort of, like, explore this with this character. Which is a sort of interesting thing. It's a little less empathy focused, I guess, but it is, like, we have to experience what is happening alongside the character. So it's kind of like in their shoes moment.
Interesting. That's a lot more interesting than I thought it was. The Hotline Miami.
Most of your experience with the game is just going to be, like, the top-down shoot 'em up, and then the story will just kind of happen, and it has, like, interactive cutscenes almost. But again, it's all, like, top-down arcade style shoot 'em up focus. You just kind of have to, like, piece together what's happening as, like, a chicken mask talks to you every once in a while.
Of course.
Yeah, and your character is like, okay, yeah, I'll go kill these people. Last game I was thinking about was Detroit Become Human. Just from the... I guess the sort of overarching idea of that game is you're supposed to, like, explore these character stories and develop empathy for them. Which is not what I did, but
I was gonna be like, you refused empathy for the character.
No, yeah, I just refused to empathize
Seth
with
is the opposite. Seth is opposite of Dempsey. He's like, I will not do what they tell me to do. Don't tell me what to do.
Yeah, and I will intentionally be like, yeah, I don't agree with the conceit of the game. So, I've okay, this is a side note. I've done this before in a D&D game.
That's a lot more annoying.
It
Sounds
is.
like an actual person there.
It is. I made a character, and then we went on, like, one adventure, and I was like, my guy wouldn't do this. And I retired the character after the first game of the campaign.
Oh no, you're like, I just can't even come up with a possible reason why this guy would do this.
Yeah, I was like, he's got a job at home that actually makes good money. He's not going to go, like, off adventuring, and I just had to retire the character. So I have a habit of just ignoring, like, the conceit of whatever media I'm consuming.
I think it's interesting because I think there's layers of empathy that a game can have. Like, a game can empathize with the character. Like, I'm going to call it internal and external. So like I would say The Last of Us Part 2 and The Beginner's Guide, there's like an internal empathy where there's characters in the game that you are trying to get to know better through different means and relationships that you're trying to understand from different perspectives. But I think something like Celeste is very much about having empathy with the player. And so Celeste is a very difficult game that acknowledges and celebrates starting over and the difficulty. So like, and rather than making you feel weak or bad for it, it handles it as if it's sharing the sense of frustration and accomplishment with you. So like, which I think is different than something like Dark Souls or Hollow Knight or Silksong, which like you get the feeling of accomplishment and the game kind of just exists to give you that feeling. Whereas Celeste, like the entire game kind of like, even like the kill counter, so like the death counter in Celeste will like tell you to celebrate your deaths. And the fact that the screens are so small and so it's so easy to restart and things like that, it's supposed to feel good to fail and feel good to start over and over again. And so I think like there is a lot of empathy between the characters in Celeste, but I think the relationship between the devs and the player, so that external kind of empathy, is also like that's a lever that you can either use or not use in games. I think one game that I would say has I don't think like I think is not empathetic, but it's still unbelievably beautiful is Outer Wilds, because Outer Wilds, the world around you is very indifferent to your existence, and there is no external empathy towards the player's experience. You are kind of given these tools that are physics based, and you have to actually learn how to use them, and the world will give you nothing. And and so like that experience, even though it's very meaningful and tender to me, it still doesn't. I don't feel like it empathizes with the player's frustration, versus a game like Celeste does. I think Super Meat Boy also might fall into that category. Maybe these like difficult platformers are prone to this, but like because Super Meat Boy will kind of show you how you die over and over again, and there's like a kind of a cartoonish glee with like seeing your blood stains and like when you finish it, seeing how all of your meat guys did and things like that. And so I think it kind of helps you revel in that accomplishment in a way that not a lot of games do. So I think maybe it's common in like hard platformers, but yeah, that's just another angle that I was thinking of. Like there's like the empathy that you can have with like with in between like characters within the world of the game, and then kind of the game itself and the player's experience.
I'm glad you brought that up, because that was kind of one of my talking points, was thinking about the ways that like mechanics in games can either communicate like emotional themes or just engender like emotional reactions in the players beyond just like, throwing your controller at the wall. And I think that's a really good point when the game developers recognize the person on the other side of the screen that's going to be playing their game, and that feeling of being considered. That's really a powerful, I think, experience, because it's sort of like when you read, I don't know if you've ever had this experience, but when you read like the afterword of a book that you really love and the author thanks the reader and you're like, you're welcome. Like, that feeling of being connected to the process.
I don't know about that one, but there is
just me.
No, well, something I've been thinking about a lot lately, now that we're like back at school. This is like less game related, but just on the topic of like, it is hard to get people to empathize, I think. I'm back to teaching environmental science this year, and like one of the main goals of my job is, in a very large perspective, is like, how do I get students to empathize with the environment? Because like this is a planet you live on, and if I can get you to empathize with the plight of nature, the whole class experience is going to be more meaningful to you. Because I think it's why like teaching about,
make them smoke cigarettes and be like, this is pollution, and then give them like 4 packs of cigarettes to smoke.
I don't.
That's what I would do.
This is why Dempsey's not a teacher. But like the thinking about like the large scale process of like, how do I actually get these students to realize that like the environment's important and you should care about it? Feels like there's some overlap with like a game or really any piece of media that's like, I want the person consuming this media to care about whatever my conceit is. And how do I actually do that? Which is the classic teacher problem, right? Like, how do I get my students to actually care about the thing that we are learning? Because I'm not teaching it to them because I have nothing better to do.
Right. It's apathy. I think apathy is like the blockade to empathy. If you don't give a shit, you can't give a shit. And that's, I run into that as well with English, because we'll talk about, a character in a story and we're like, well, how would you feel if you were in that situation? Or how do you think they feel when this happens? And they're like, I don't know. I wouldn't care. And I'm like, bullshit, you wouldn't care. Okay. But you can't force people over that hump of apathy. And I think it's funny. I was talking to one of my students and I said, well, he's like, I hate reading. And I was like, okay, well, what kind of TV shows do you like? And he's like, I don't watch TV. I said, well, okay, movies. And he's like, I watch TikTok. And I was like, okay. And I said, what video games do you play? Fortnite. Like, okay. So complete lack of exposure to other people's stories and other people's perspectives. It's like their empathy muscle is just shriveled into nothing,
But it's funny too, because like social media should be like the empathy vehicle, right? But it's not. It's like the AI slop vehicle, which is like terrible, because we have such good opportunity with like one of the most powerful tools for human connection ever invented, and we use it to like monetize slop.
I wonder sometimes, I think about like bringing a video game into my English class as a method of increasing engagement, to get them to actually engage with a narrative other than their own. And I wonder, like, I think I saw somebody did What Remains of Edith Finch as an 8th grade, like, quote unquote novel unit. And
that game is very literary. That's an extraordinarily literary game.
Yeah, it is. And I think it does a good job of helping you to see like other perspectives.
Yeah, 8th graders like death too. They're gonna like all the suicide and things like that.
Yeah, they're gonna love the drowning baby. It'll be great.
Yeah, the deer that kicks the guy off the mountain.
Yeah,
that's a good game. If you haven't played What Remains of Edith Finch, play What Remains. You gotta kill a baby.
Oh my God, you don't. The baby, in fairness, it's never shown. Maybe it survived. I don't think so. No.
And then the parents get divorced because they can't handle that the dad left the baby in the bathtub. Or the
never leave your babies in the bathtub. I'm not sure. I think everybody died, didn't they? Besides Edith.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Maybe that's what you got to do. You gotta sit a kid down and be like, I want you to imagine your mom died, and then. And then just like don't say anything. They're not allowed to say anything for the rest of class. And then just like write on the board like, what if your mom died? And then just make them stare at that.
Because I have too many students whose moms have actually died. And then it's like, oh, yeah, it's bad.
Okay, we have to look for something more traumatic. I'm going to be thinking about this. Go.
Okay, think about it. We can shock them into caring about something.
Yeah.
But on that note, do you feel that video games can, I guess, engender or spark like an emotional reaction similar to that which you would experience from like a film or a book? Have you had that experience?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a lot of the same. Like, for example, in screenplay writing, you'll have this moment called save the cat, like the character saves the cat. And it's where the character does something kind that endears you to them, even if they're an asshole. And so like a lot of action movie, like John Wick, like he loves his dog, and that's kind of his save the cat moment when you can see him interacting with something tender, and then so you're on his side. So then when the dog gets killed, you understand why he's going on this violent rampage. And I think like I've been thinking about Silksong, and I think Silksong has it's interesting because I think Silksong is a lot more of a typical narrative like that you can apply like quote unquote screenwriting tools than Hollow Knight, because like Silksong does have moments where like Hornet wants to help people and you want Hornet to succeed because she's helping someone that you find sympathetic. And even if they don't recognize you, like the like the one that's dinging the bells at the beginning and needs to get the gate open, and Hornet opens the gate for her. Like that's like a kind of a save the cat moment where, you know, you get that Hornet is willing and able to and interested in helping people. And then like I think also there's moments where you understand what they want. So, okay, Katie, this is kind of a spoiler for Silksong, but it goes with why I am so on Hornet's side. So, and this goes back to the snapping of the neck. So this is kind of a, I don't know, I would consider this a mild spoiler. But you get your cloak stolen from you and you're naked and really, you get a lot of your tools taken away, and you find the guy who takes your cloak, and instead of defeating him, it's just like a little mini cutscene where you just go up and snap his neck and take your cloak back. And like in that moment, her characterization is so clear to me. Like, why would you like she has such, and I think she does double damage that whole fight. So like she has such anger about this really specific moment of indignity that she faces. Like it's a very like she's naked and she's forced to confront this indignity that's happened to her. And she handles it like in such like a direct and ferocious way. And so like because of that moment, I feel like I have more access to her world and how she sees things. Like she's very interested in dignity. Hornet is, and like she takes the structures of the Citadel and things like that very seriously, because she understands the power of noble birth and being more than what you seem and being like, you know, extraordinarily powerful. And so like I think dignity is very important to Hornet. And one way that the game makes that clear is by putting her in a moment of extreme indignity, like an undignified moment, and how she responds to that. And I think so far it's the only time you kill an enemy automatically. Like it's the only time where like her response is just to kill them without any struggle. Right. And so I think like you give your characters this moment where their motivation and characters are so tangible and make so much sense. And I think for most of storytelling, like that's how you build like good characterization. So like God of War, when Kratos is talking to his kid and you're trying to teach him how to shoot the deer, and there's an element of that where you see that, okay, Kratos isn't like an abusive, horrible person, but he's also like very impatient and has a lot to learn. And so through that moment, you see kind of both he's trying as a dad, but also where his weaknesses as a parent are. In the opening scene where he's teaching Atreyu to hunt a deer, and so I think like, and that's, I don't know, like I feel like with characters, I guess, that you want to empathize with, you need those moments that kind of, you know, place them in their like what the character wants, how they want their life to be, and what's standing in their way, I guess.
Making them more like fleshed out.
Yeah.
I was gonna say though, like thinking about other media and stuff, like you can flesh out a character and empathize with them, and they do this with villains a lot, right? Like, hello, I'm going to like flesh out this character so that you can empathize with them. Also, they're a dumb piece of shit. Which is kind of like what God of War does, except God of War, like that character is also the protagonist. And at least in like the, you know, the more recent games, he's trying to like be a better person, I guess. And I'm struggling to think of a good like video game example, but what's the Hunger Games movie that's like fairly new like Ballad of
The Ballad of Snakes and Songs or something like that.
Right. Is that the one that follows like Snow's childhood and like the first Hunger Games?
Yeah. It's like a prequel. Yeah.
I watched that movie and I was like, oh, this is a movie where I am supposed to like empathize with this guy. Except the entire time I watched this movie, I went, this man is clinically insane, is a psychopath, and I don't know why anybody around him does anything he says. It's obvious from like the first 10 minutes of the movie that you're like, this guy is psychotic. And then he doesn't get any better. Which like sort of tainted my experience for the movie, because the whole time I'm just like watching this movie in horror as he's like, what if we took our murder show and we turned it into a spectacle? And I'm like, holy shit, that's crazy. And I feel like I'm in the movie theater and like there's a pretty boy on screen and everybody's like, ooh. And I'm like, are you not seeing this?
Yeah, but he's trying to bring like dignity and prestige to it though. Right? Because it's already happening.
But it's not good, right? Like he's like, what if we turn this into a spectacle sport? And everyone's like, yeah. I think so. This goes back to like, I am very easily like, I will give into whatever conceit you give to me.
You'll be manipulated the way that they want to manipulate
100%.
Did you watch Dune and think Paul was a good person? Like,
no, but I can see where Paul's coming from. Like, I can see like, okay, he's expecting this amount of power and he's growing to a point where people are just giving him this power. Like, people are just worshiping him. And that's kind of how he expects the world to work, because he's royalty. And like, he's not going to question. He's going to end up accepting the worship. Like, I'm not saying that's an okay thing to do, but I'm saying that as I'm watching him convince himself that he is a god, like, I think like I can empathize with like why he would do that, because that's his whole thing. He was royalty and now he's being worshipped as a messiah figure. And, you know, like they've been like genetically bred to play this role.
Yeah, but like, in the case of Dune, what do you want to say, Katie?
Oh, I was just going to say, do you think that, like, what is the purpose of shows like that? Because they've done that with like Joker and different things as well, where you're supposed to empathize with these characters that we know are like objectively bad dudes or bad people. Well, what is the purpose?
You know what, Debsy, I see you're about to say something and I'm cutting you off. Because I think postmodernism is all we have left. Everybody wants to empathize with the bad guys. There's no sense of truth anymore. Everything's gray. There's no black and white.
Empathy's not interesting if you only empathize with people who are like you. That's not where like the interestingness is. You're supposed to, as a writer, this is the best piece of writing advice I ever got, but like talk about the things that you don't want anyone else to know about you. Like, I think that's where like the interesting elements of the human experience lie, is in these parts of ourselves. Because I don't think anyone's like evil. Well, okay, there are a few people who are evil like the Joker, but that's like, the Joker was not made by people who were evil like him, but I think it is made by people who do have some of those elements inside of themselves, like do have some of that, like feeling persecuted, feeling like other people should hurt because I am hurt. And like those things, even in small quantities, exist inside of us. And so we make these characters that kind of take those natural inclinations that we have to their logical extremes. Like with Paul, right? Like all of us have a little bit of like main character energy. If you're kind of a fantasy writer that was bullied as a kid and kind of thinks that you're smarter than everybody else, like you're going to feel that way, recognize that's not something that you want to feel, and then try to take that to its logical extreme. So I think we empathize with villains because it's the only way that we have access to like the parts of ourselves that we don't like.
And it allows us to empathize with those parts in ourselves?
What? Well,
does it allow us to empathize with those parts in ourselves if we see it in somebody else?
I don't think that's empathy anymore. I think that's just a feeling. Because I think empathy has to be with someone else. So I think we can empathize. Or
rather, maybe compassion for ourselves.
Yeah. I think it allows us, at the very least, it allows us to kind of create an understanding of why it's wrong to indulge in these things, or why, even though I feel this way, where does this go? Like, I don't think people watch the Joker and think the Joker's right. I think he's a psycho. But I do think people understand that feeling. Like, I don't know, you see rich people on public transport and have a lot more money than you. And like, a lot of people will feel that like innate jealousy and wishing them harm, which is kind of the inciting incident in the Joker is he kills these 3 rich kids. And like, that's...
Do you think...
I think there's something sympathetic about that.
Okay, weird. But do you think that... Sorry. Do you think, though, that... Okay, so my thought is that people are so media illiterate and exposed to so little narrative these days. Back in my day, we read books and we watched Star Trek Next Generation. But anyway, but because they're not exposed to as much, a lot of the times it gets as much narrative and such. When you do watch these kinds of things like the Ballad of Songs and Snakes or whatever, or the Joker, do you think that they look at that and they think, well, I'm supposed to feel, I feel for this person, it must be okay. Like, no. And then internalize that instead and be like, well, the ways that I'm terrible are fine and people will empathize with me even though I'm an asshole.
I don't think so. I don't think people are that media illiterate.
I'm taking the other side because like if I went to my high schoolers and we watched Joker and I was like, what did you get out of this movie? They're not going to be like, yeah, he's a bad person, but I empathize with like the actions that made him into the person that he is now, and I understand how somebody could go down those paths. Like, it's not like they're going to be like, yeah, it was cool. He like shot the newscaster at the end.
Yeah.
And
he
like,
did do that. That's true.
Again, this is my not completely unserious rant about like, feels like such a common like trope across a lot of different genres where like everything needs to be some sort of shade of gray. Nobody is ever completely evil or completely in the right. Bad, like everybody who's a bad guy out there is doing it for some like justified reason that has to do with their childhood, when it is also just like not true, right? Like, there are just some, like, really bad, shitty people out there who do stuff for, like, bad, shitty reasons. And we seem to have, like, drifted away from that as, like, a device. Because that's also, like, if we're talking about media literacy, right, is that not also something that's important to recognize? Like,
Yeah. Like,
you're not going to defeat fascism with, like, shades of gray, right? Like, it's...
Right.
They're just bad people.
I think video games are interesting because I would say that, so in movies and things like that, villains are a lot of times like I think video games have a lot less empathy for villains more often because they expect you to do more violence to villains more of the time.
It's fair.
And so I think like in film, film wants to have complicated, empathetic villains because you're not the one doing the violence to them. And so, but I think like, because I'm thinking of like Far Cry and things like that. And like, those are cartoony villains. And I think video games will often have a lot more simplistic villains because it needs to justify violence because of how much violence you're doing. So like Doom, like you're fighting demons. Right? Like Wolfenstein, you're fighting Nazis. Like you need to not feel bad about the kind of violence you're doing to them. Which I think is what people, I think that's what people criticize video games for a lot of times, is that like they dehumanize, like the Call of Duty, like the places that Call of Duty takes place in, for example, will like dehumanize the people who live there. Or, you know, the uniforms. I haven't played a Call of Duty game in a long time, so I don't know. But like, I think that's a big criticism of video games, is how two-dimensional the villains are. And I don't think that's bad necessarily. Like, I don't need Bowser to be more morally complicated and gray. Like, I don't think that makes for a better Mario game if you feel bad when you jump on the Goombas. But like, but I do think that's an element that I think is unique to video games. Like, maybe in books you would have like the most complicated like characters, and then film you need to have like characters with iconography that you can recognize easier, and so it, you know, uses more visual tropes. And then I think video games, you probably have the most simplistic villains because, you know, in like so for example, I like Ghost of I'm thinking about Ghost of Yote or Ghost of Tsushima because Ghost of Yote is coming out soon. But like you have the conflict in that game is between two good guys. And then you have kind of like a faceless invading army, but they're not really the main. That's not really the main conflict. The main conflict is with you and your uncle, who have different versions of like what honor looks like. And that's like the main like good, emotionally grounded stuff. But like the people that you're killing, they're kind of like this faceless horde of an invading army that you're not supposed to empathize with at all. So I don't know. I think that's kind of interesting. Like, the amount of violence that you do to video game characters necessitates a distance from their humanity.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. I think that's where it can kind of fall on both sides of the line there. So like you're saying in Call of Duty, like if you look at the Modern Warfare games, the campaigns in recent iterations have done a fairly good job of creating moments that forces the player to recognize the humanity of the other side, or to recognize the horror of war in a more immediate way. Like No Russian, where you play as a like terrorist gunning down civilians, and you're like, there's no way to opt out. You know, actually you can choose to skip that scene, but if you're playing it, you can't opt out of shooting the people. But then, or like, in one of the first Modern Warfare that I played, I think it was the first Modern Warfare, your helicopter crashes and you like die from radiation poisoning or something. And I remember it being the most like impacting, scene that I had experienced in a video game at the time. This was like 2007 or something. But then you
I have a
turn
question
around.
about Call of Duty.
Yeah.
Are there sub-series within Call of Duty? So like Call of Duty is not just one series, but there's like Modern
Correct.
Warfare.
Yeah.
And then
Modern
there's, like,
Warfare is one franchise, like one subsection of the franchise. Then you got Black Ops, that's made by Treyarch. And then you've got like, so there's Treyarch and there's Infinity Ward.
They're different
Infinity Ward
development
is in charge.
companies.
Yeah.
Oh.
That are all under this COD umbrella. And
Okay.
so Infinity Ward makes Modern Warfare and Treyarch makes Black Ops, if I've got that right. I think.
Gotcha.
I've got
Okay.
that right.
Anyways, I'm so sorry. Go on. I'm learning so much about Call of Duty.
It's fascinating. But so you have these moments in the campaign that are curated to make you, there's like a scene where you have to choose whether or not to shoot this woman who is married to like a bad guy on the other side, but she's a civilian. But if you don't shoot her, she will try to shoot you. And so it's like this whole thing. And then you end up having to kill her and you're like, fuck, I didn't want to do that. Why'd you make me do that? And it's upsetting. But then you turn around and you play Warzone or you play multiplayer and you're just gunning down faceless, nameless, featureless hordes of enemies. And that distance is magnified, you know? And I think that's where that loss of empathy really comes into play, because then you've also got like the online trash talk and that sort of thing, like unmoderated commentary during competition, and people say things under that anonymity that they would never say in person until eventually they would. And then you have my middle schoolers who say terrible things to each other in person because they feel like nobody else is real. It's fine. It's going to be fine. They're going to be fine.
Someone will get better.
Humanity will be fine. But I think the games that engender the most empathy in me are the ones that are most like novels, to your point about complexity of like antagonists and such.
Sure.
There's really only 3 games that I can think of that cause me to have like a tearful experience, like similar to what I cry all the time from books. I was reading The Thursday Murder Club, which is like a lighthearted, witty crime book about like elderly people solving a murder. And then she starts talking about her husband who has dementia and the loneliness of old age. And I was like, oh my God, it's too much. But in games, not so much, right? But I Was a Teenage Exocolonist was one that hit me really hard.
Sure.
And I cried at the end. And that is almost entirely a visual novel. Citizen Sleeper hit me really hard. That was also a visual novel. And then Detroit Become Human, which is the most actiony of the types, but it's still almost like a interactive movie with the way the quick time and stuff is. So I think it's interesting that the games with the least mechanical input are the ones that have impacted me the most emotionally.
Sure.
Which is not what I would have expected.
Yeah, I mean, I would say like that pattern just doesn't hold for me because of Outer Wilds. Because Outer Wilds is extraordinarily mechanically dense. And also, I don't know if it's emotionally impactful, but it's like existentially impactful. But yeah, I mean, I think like Florence and things like that, like Florence tells the story kind of through its mechanics in a way that you couldn't tell through like any other medium. So I think like, I think the problem is like, not the problem, but something that is unique to video games. I don't think empathy is required for a good game. I think that for a good movie or book, empathy is required. You need to want to spend time with the characters. But like for Baba Is You, you don't really need to know why the sheep wants to push the blocks around. Like I don't think like Balatro, right? Like needs character motivation other than the fact that like the mechanics are interesting to the player. So I think that's interesting is that like obviously more story-driven games, but then the reason that they need empathy is because they become literary works. Like God of War and Florence and What Remains of Edith Finch like have really good scripts to them, and the scripts need empathy. But not all video games are centered around scripts. And so you don't need empathy to build like Dead Cells. You don't need a lot of empathy for to enjoy Dead Cells, because it's like diarrhea Christmas lights or whatever. Like you just want to see flashing lights and killing Dopamine. Your enemies and things like that. And I don't think Dead Cells is a bad game. And so that's that, because even with movies, like even for something kind of like quote unquote mindless like Transformers or something, you still want to be able to empathize with the characters. So I think video games maybe are too broad of an art form to say that they're good or bad to teach empathy with. Because I think you have to get really specific in what games, in a way that you don't necessarily have to in movies and TVs.
Interesting. So do you think that with like movies and television and books and that sort of thing, I don't know how brains work that well, but I'm assuming as we're reading these things or watching TV or movies, our brain we're hitting that reward center of our brain in some way from watching them, or else we wouldn't want to, right? Does that sound right? Yeah. Okay. But video games have found a way to short circuit and skip the part where you have to be emotionally invested in order to hit that dopamine center. And we're able to get that reward through the mechanics.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's any different than like a puzzle. Like that's like saying like a puzzle skips the narrative. Like I have some puzzles in the back here. This little flower puzzle. Like I don't think the flower puzzle skips needing a narrative. I just think the nature of a puzzle, you don't need to have empathy. Like I don't need to empathize with this bowl that there's the flowers and things like that in order for it to be a good puzzle. And so I don't think it's like skipping anything. I just think like the nature of what it is doesn't need that, you know?
Except for what about if it's something like a shooter game where you are like actually shooting human shaped characters that are played by other people. then it's still like you're getting that mechanical like pleasure while also distancing the player from the humanity of the other people in a way that's different from like a puzzle.
Yeah, but like you could make the same argument for like Rock'em Sock'em Robots, right? Like just because I'm incurring violence on something that is human shaped is not like indicative of me like lacking empathy for like the other robot.
Mm-hmm.
Because like I'm moving up and down the levers and it punches the guy in front of me, right? Like it's not like a slippery slope argument, but it's like I don't think as video games get more realistic, it like changes that vibe, because like people said the same thing when like the NES was out and like that was the best graphics we had. And like I don't think the research on it has really changed much at all. Like
no.
I don't mean that I think it'll cause violence or whatever, but I'm just wondering, I mean, there clearly is a dire shortage of empathy.
Yeah,
especially in like online spaces.
I don't think video games are a good tool to fix that. I think things like books and movies are a better tool, because like you have to, I think first of all, you have to get people to play a very specific kind of video game that I don't think they would be interested in unless they're already predisposed to those. But a Marvel movie, you could have very tender, empathetic messages and also have superhero action. Like, so even the most like spectacle oriented movies on the planet still need to empathize with the characters. You need to have interesting conflicts, and you need to understand why people are doing these things. So I think that video games can inspire empathy, but I think mostly it's just for people who are already interested in that. Like I think it's for an audience that already agrees with you. Whereas I think movies have a better I think movies and books and things like The Hunger Games is an example, right? Like The Hunger Games is like incredibly engaging in like the individual psychology, even for people who just want like a fun YA adventure story. Like you don't have to go looking for empathy. You'll find it in good books anyways. I just think that this is one of the limitations of video games, but like not inherently limiting, because like obviously the beginner's guide and the other one, the one where she hates herself, his most recent one where she makes tea because she hates herself.
Wanderstop or something.
Wanderstop, yeah, Wanderstop. Like I think Wanderstop is a wildly like bravely empathetic game about horrible people and why people hate themselves and what that means to hate yourself when it's actually kind of justified. Like what do you do when the reason you hate yourself feels like a reasonable reason?
It's actually a good reason.
You hate yourself because you suck.
Yeah.
Which,
I mean,
yeah,
that's kind
fair.
of the point. That's kind of the point of Wanderstop, and it's like incredibly confronting. It's a really beautiful game, but I don't think a kid that like only plays Fortnite is going to jump into Wanderstop. You know,
right?
Like, I just don't think. I think that this is a limitation of video games as far as like their appeal and what they have to offer. I think like obviously there's very empathetic video games. I just think that if we're looking at an empathy crisis, which I don't work with kids, so, and the kids that I work with are all extremely emotionally intelligent because they're actors. So like I cast kids for projects, but they're all like acting kids, and I can tell them like, hey, you feel like you're hesitant to talk to an adult, but then the adult, you know, says something that makes you feel comforted. And like the kid instantly knows exactly what I'm talking about because they're an actor. And so like,
because they probably have watched lots of things and they probably read.
Yes, 100%. And so like the kids I work with are extremely emotionally intelligent because that's their professional goal. And so like, I don't know, but I do feel like video games are like, there has to be a very curated, because I don't think that like making Doom more empathetic will ever make Doom a better experience. Like,
right.
Yeah.
Or even Far Cry, where it's like actual people. Like a more complicated Far Cry villain, I want a cartoon. I want cartoon goons that I can snipe off from 2 miles away. Like that's the experience that I want when I play Far Cry.
Yeah.
For my wrapping thought here, because I know we're pretty far over time here. To connect to Dempsey, your idea there is I've talked about this a lot with people for Dungeons and Dragons, where like genre wise, fantasy is very oriented around like picking and choosing who and what you're empathetic for, because like Dungeons and Dragons doesn't function as a game if like you want to have empathy for every enemy you come across, because like you get ambushed on the road by like a horde of goblins. Like your first instinct as a character could not be, I wonder what happened in this goblin's childhood to bring it to the point that it is now raiding people on the road. It like, we're not going to get anywhere. And it's also just, I think for a lot of people, not what they want out of the genre. And it's one of the conceits, I think, of a fantasy genre piece of media, that like that's a thing that's we have to mindlessly kill some things, and then like, I don't know, the big bad guy will have some empathy for and sort of explore backstory. And yeah, that's just kind of how that is. And I think like video games tend to operate in a little bit of the same field. Like, hey, in order to sort of explore the genre of game that we're trying to experience here, we're going to have to pull some of our like conceit of empathy back. I guess there's a good word for it, but I don't remember. But also, I think it's helpful to remember that like it's a video game, right? It is a game at the end of the day. I don't think anybody would go into Monopoly or go into Scrabble and be like, you know, I'm not empathizing with the alphabet enough during my game of Scrabble. Like,
Seth, are you accusing us of overthinking?
I am
games?
accusing us of
Is
overthinking
that what's happening
games
right now?
It's the name of the show.
It's a game, he says,
game.
on Overthinking Games.
On Overthinking Games.
It's just a game, man. It's not that deep.
But like, right, it's we do often talk about like the sort of overthinking side of this, which is like, hey, like there is a lot to overthink for games, because we can like elevate these to like a higher standard of media. But also at the end of the day, right, like some of these are games. I like my poker game.
Sometimes a cigar is a cigar.
Yeah, like this is a pipe. Like my game doesn't need to be anything else other than what it is. Like Balatro does not need some greater message of empathy. It's a game where you mess around with like poker. And that's okay. Like it's allowed to be that. And it doesn't need to be anything else. And I think it's happy being that. So
it's happy being that. Very good. Okay. Well, thank you so much for joining us. This has been Overthinking Games, a podcast about what video games can teach us. If you have thoughts on this topic or any others, or suggestions of what we should cover, our email is in the show notes. We are on YouTube, full episodes on YouTube now, and on TikTok, and all of the usual places. So we'll catch you next time. Thanks. Bye.
Bye.